Welcome to Outside the Overton. I am Joshua Vandernoord with my co-host, or I guess you call him, I don't know. What are we like?
I don't know. I guess
Primary
it could be
host?
co-host.
A two-man show.
Fellow
Outside
reporter.
the Overton.
I guess we're reporters now.
Yeah, it's kind of turned into a little bit of a news broadcast type situation where, we're talking heads, talking to a camera. We move things around a little bit, as you saw in that main shot. Go back to that main shot for a second. Let us know what you think about that. We were kind of doing, we do the Pendulum podcast. We do this show, and we thought to kind of change it up. We're figuring it out as we go. But I think this has like a different look to it, and we're testing it out right now. I think it looks good though. I think. What do you think?
I don't know. We got a lot going on, man. We got to figure it out. Maybe we'll dial into one. Maybe we'll expand a little bit more. I don't know how much more stretched out I could get with everything that's going on, but we'll try to see how it goes.
Sounds good.
Outside the Overton.
Outside the Overton.
A little graphic there for you, Josh.
Intro time. Forgot about the intro. Yeah, we're figuring it out as we go. But so today, I guess, we basically, the show started last Thursday, and originally we had talked about doing once a week, but now this is our third show, right? Or our fourth.
It's I think it's the third episode of Outside the Overton.
Third of Outside the Overton.
Fourth or fifth we've done with between them. So
yeah, so I think we're going to be doing this a lot more. And I know today we're basically continuing the conversation we had on the last episode, which is about USAid.
Yeah, so the last episode it was just breaking, talking about USAid and how much money was being funneled into different things. At that point that we were talking about Ukraine, because Zelensky had just come out saying basically that he don't know where $100 million went, which I would like to know where 100 billion.
100 billion.
100
he
billion.
said there was a missing 100 billion.
I'd like to know where that 100 billion went. But since then, some of the USAID numbers have come out. I think somebody on Data Republican on Twitter has been kind of publishing some numbers coming out. Politico was on USAID payroll. I think New York Times might be a little bit. I think vause is. Some of these left-wing outlets that have just been opposition to us continually, especially in the midst of Russiagate, trying to dismiss the first Trump administration to the Hunter Biden laptop. So we've gone almost full circle now. We found out the government is funding this through our taxpayer dollars. So, Josh, I don't know. I mean, I would like a little bit of a refund here. If I'm funding my own opposition, can we get a little something?
Yeah, I mean, that's the craziest thing about this is, of course, we knew the money going to Ukraine, or that we thought was going to Ukraine, we knew where that was coming from. It's coming from the taxpayer. And of course, that's not a mystery. That was known from the beginning, and people understandably weren't okay with that. You got these liberals that think America is like in a fixed position in the world, on the world stage, and that we can just dole out money to whoever needs it no matter what, and that we have a moral obligation to these countries. But the Politico story, and there's several other basically liberal news media sites that it's come out that after Trump and Elon put an end to or a stop on USAID, they can't make payroll. They're no longer being funded. So I definitely think like this. There was probably people suspicious of this, probably people that knew this beforehand, but now that it's kind of out in the mainstream, I'm surprised more people aren't upset about it.
I think a lot of people that knew about it were the ones that were being funded. This is why there's so much opposition to DOGE, because, well, it's a little bit unconventional, but on top of that, they know where they're going to look. And if we're running through all of the financials from USAID or whoever it is, they're going to kind of keep quiet, maybe let it pass over, maybe they keep getting their money, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's a complete uprooting of the entire system. when Politico can't make payroll the day of recognizing that USAID is paying them, I would say that money is tied directly to USAID. Now, to put this in perspective, USAID is only 0.7% of the federal budget. 0.7%. That's virtually nothing. So what I guess what pops in my mind is, now the other 99.3%, how is that being spent? Where's all that money going? If we're finding this much fraud and less than a percentage of government spending, our taxes could hit 0%, right?
Dude, I know.
No issue.
It's crazy.
If it continues on like it's going. Now, to kind of caveat that a little bit, I did the Marine Corps thing for a little bit. I did 5 years of it, and they passed their second audit in 2 years. I guess they passed last year and this year, where nobody else has done that. So a little bit of props to the Marine Corps there on passing financial audit. Let's go, dude.
You gotta toot your own horn there a little bit, military man over here. But yeah, that's the crazy thing about this to me is the amount of people, like no one denies that grifting was going on. We all knew that people were, filling their own pockets in government and even in the bureaucracy. But with kind of to the point you were making, what this story breaking has shown is it's to an insane degree. And I'll use the Ukraine thing, for example, and Zelensky. Now, a part of me does not believe Zelensky. Zelensky's a huckster. He's a total boob and a shill. And he's basically a con man. He's a US CIA installed leader of Ukraine. He's a con man. He's there for his own gain, essentially. And so for him to say that only 70 billion of 177 billion dollars that was supposed to go to Ukraine actually got there, I'm a little skeptical of that to begin with. But that number is so crazy, I don't think he's just outright lying. He some of that has to be true. So that paired with this story about how they're breaking news on some of the expenses, like that. I forget the name of the organization, but they were basically charging it was like $200,000 monthly for coffee cups. Obviously, that's a fudged expense that someone's filling their pockets with. And we all knew that was going on. But now that we're seeing the overarching number, the overarching numbers, it's crazy. Where is this money going?
Now, you talk about Zelensky. I know a lot of the actors, actresses that kind of came out, the influencers came out to almost support the Ukraine or even do a photo shoot with Zelensky have been paid upwards in the millions of dollars each.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're funneling all this money into influencers to oppose the American people. I mean, that's what it is. It's to siphon off money of taxpayers' dollars that could go back into American infrastructure, American pockets. Really, I mean, you could just cut the taxes at that point. It's going to fund not just Ukraine, but the perception of Ukraine, or the perception of any country for that matter, all of them. I don't know where we go from here. Can the left-wing media that is being funded through right now USAID, whatever we find out throughout the next week or two, I think they're looking into the Department of Education next. There's a lot of funding there too, man. Are they going to be able to sustain themselves outside of government funding?
No, of course not. And it's one of these things where it's this is one of the things that was allowed to come out. What's going on behind the scenes that they just won't allow? That they would kill Trump before they let him reveal it. You know what I mean? It's good. This is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm skeptical of how much can actually, I know I've said this before, I'm kind of, saying it over, but how much can actually be accomplished here. And I think right now Trump is the president, and it benefits him to expose that Politico is being funded by the state.
I guess the way I see it is, over the last 4 years and prior to that, obviously, any issue that ever arises and it's usually filed under a glitch is always it always benefits them. It always benefits the politicos. It always hinders some of the right wing, whether that's from J6 to bad news press. So I don't know how much would even backfire on Trump on exposing. Like, if it's so ingrained into the system that these people are being propped up, at what point would it benefit him to not expose? I guess is my question to you.
Well, okay. So here's what I mean by that is I think that Donald Trump, he didn't uncover this personally. Elon did, and people.
Well, I think they knew. I mean, this is 4 years in the planning for sure.
I don't know about that.
You don't think so? A little revenge tour.
It's definitely that. But like,
okay, let's say
do you think that Donald Trump knew this 4 years ago?
Well, Trump's in the White House 8 years ago, and he can see everything that's going on. But the deep state is so ingrained, and he has no idea how to actually fix this thing. He can't do anything about it. So we lose election, quote unquote, lose election in 2020, and it's a gift. It gives us 4 years of planning. I'm just thinking through the thought process. Okay, I couldn't fix it my first 4 years, so the second 4 years, I'm going to be ready for it. And I guess DOGE is his answer to not being able to access some of that money, whether that's, like I said, the USAID or soon to be the Department of Education.
Well, here's where you and I kind of differ on that is because the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is a recent invention. And if you recall, Elon Musk did not come on the scene until like this past summer, I think. He was initially for Ron DeSantis. So I'm skeptical of how much Trump has done more than Elon. Again, that's kind of besides the point. That's not to say that that's a bad thing.
You don't think that Elon was in the planning process when it was happening?
Let me put it this way. If DeSantis got in, we would also get this. He would also get rid of USAid.
I don't know, man. That's a tough one.
I'm curious as to why you think, because I think like that's basically the point. I think it's more Elon's
I think
doing.
DeSantis is pretty solid. I just don't think. I think what it's taking now has had to been worked up 4 years prior, 3 years prior at least. I mean, this isn't some off the wall new invention of, oh, let Elon have access to all the financials with his team of young coders,
teenagers,
call them what you will. I mean, they're doing the bidding right now.
I mean that as a compliment. Like, look what they're doing at 19 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, Trump. We all know Trump is a unique character, and I don't think DeSantis would have had the knowledge from a prior presidency, nor the balls to essentially take on the entire deep state.
Yeah, I agree with that. But here's. Like, I don't want to get too much off the USA topic, but I do think that with Elon and DeSantis and Trump, first off, if Donald Trump cut USAid and that was solely his decision, I would almost think, and this is instinct. I don't have like an article or a piece of evidence. This is just how from what I know about Trump, my experience in viewing politics, just how it's gone over the past 10 years since I got invested in politics. I don't believe Trump plays 5D chess. I think he plays 2D chess. It's still chess, but it's not quite as advanced as we think. And I think that's evident by the beginning of the first term. Granted, I think, anyway, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think Donald Trump, the Politico's funding being uncovered, if Trump did it, it was an accident. If Elon did it, which I think, that may have been intentional. And I do think that DeSantis he's more of a puppet than like your average conservative would admit. So I think that like DeSantis doesn't have the balls, but his handlers do.
Losing or having an election stolen from you after a presidency where you had your hands tied behind your back for 4 years, you don't think it's just plain chess to be like, I'm running again in 4 years. Let me prep. I know what's going on. I know where the issues are. Let's figure out a way into them. Let's figure out a way to undo, let's say, 65 years of lawfare.
I definitely think that's in there. But let me put it this way. I think that Donald Trump, the second time around, I believe he ran more out of a sense of, I want to stay out of jail. And as opposed to his intentions in 2016, which was to really change. I know you. It sounds like
I want to win the presidency, so I don't get locked up. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, you don't think so? I think Donald Trump wanted to stay out of prison.
I mean, obviously he did, but I don't think that was. I mean, it was. I think it was a slight motivating factor.
Well, let me put it this way: when he announced in 22 that yes, he was running again. None of these cases were really happening. You know, they had been talked about, but like they weren't actually like being pushed. Then he decided to run again, and because he's a prideful man. And I think again,
we don't deny that.
He's very prideful, and I think he did run initially with the best intentions. But then the further he pushed, the more they pushed back, and it was like, okay, now I've got myself in a situation where I have to win or I am going to prison. And then it was like, okay, I'll take Miriam Adelson's money. I'll take whoever's money I need to win. And I feel like we're getting off the USAid topic.
I mean, it's still in the same vein. It's all an upending of the current system or the load-bearing walls that have existed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deny that it's a little bit of a revenge in there.
Oh, yeah. I don't either.
But I don't think he actually cares if they went after him to go to prison, to put him in prison, if that makes sense. I think it's more. Maybe. I think it's significantly more on the revenge side of things.
That too. I think the only place we really differ on is how much of it was premeditated. And I think,
but there was. When I think back to him announcing, there was no question of, is he going to run again? I mean, the question was, when's he announcing?
Yeah.
His presidential campaign never ended after 20. I mean, he just kept on going.
Yeah.
Even during Biden's initial presidency, they were still having Trump rallies essentially. So he had a 4-year-long campaign and a 4-year planning process, probably. That's kind of what I'm throwing out there. It's like, yeah, we're running again. Yeah, we know where the cracks in the system are. Yeah, we're going to open them up. We're going to start with a program that allows access to a governing body that is for quote unquote government efficiency, and which ended up being DOGE. I don't know how much Elon was planning or baked into the process, but there's so many Silicon Valley guys out there that could have maybe done something similar to what we're seeing Elon do. Maybe not with the same likability.
I'll tell you this, because I was actually talking with Kennard about this today, where basically I feel like on the left and the right, and maybe it's just human nature, but like especially in politics with the left and the right, both sides feel the need to play defense no matter what, which is why like there can be an issue that like we can look at an issue on our own side, and I'm trying to think of an example, but hypothetically, if there were like a lot of corruption on our side, and I say I'm not okay with this corruption, and then the left were to say, look at all the corruption on their side, I feel like a lot of people on the right wing immediately have like, they go, no, look at you, or there's not corruption. They kind of ignore the problem instead of saying, yeah, like, and the example I'm kind of getting at is you and I have like slight disagreements on Elon. I like Elon. He's definitely a smart guy. He's an entrepreneur, and I do think he can help. I think we just differ on what his long-term intentions are. So when the left has this rally where they say we vote, like, we didn't vote for Elon. Elon's not an elected official. He shouldn't have this power. We agree, but for different reasons. I'm skeptical of Elon. They're terrified of Elon. I'm skeptical of him.
I don't think
But it
we
comes
differ
from the
on
same
Elon
place.
as much as you think we do.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting.
Like I don't think we differ on Elon at all. I'm just willing to accept the consequences.
I'll be specific
of allowing.
Sure, and maybe that's where we differ. But basically, I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking. Like why I'm skeptical. I think that Elon, he bought Twitter, renamed it, rebranded it, and said this is a free speech platform. 4 years ago, the right was terrified of being censored. Everyone, like Tucker Carlson, was afraid of getting censored. And then Elon comes on the scene. He buys it. It's sacrificial. He takes a lot of flack for it. Now he's no longer a golden boy by everybody. Now he's a target of the left, and he says that Twitter or X is now a absolute free speech platform. That's what it's branded as. But there have been people on the right,
A significant amount
that have been censored. He has not rebranded it. He defends it. He says, well, these are the crazies. This is the people that nobody wants.
Yeah,
Ken Art even said that to me. He said, like, well, those are the crazy ones. Okay, well then
that's the whole point.
But that's not free speech absolutist.
Yes.
And I think, like I said this on my show.
Well, here's the difference between us and them, Josh. I'm not a free speech absolutist.
Neither am I.
But I don't go around saying I am.
Exactly.
And this is the issue. They say they're Jeffersonian free speechists, and they're not.
100%. They're as long as I can say what I want, which is what I like. Like, I don't want the transgenders to be able to like have an open platform. I think that's obviously wrong and immoral, and they're literally their entire ideology needs to be disregarded. They should not have. There should be no free speech for them. I think that's a moral obligation. But that's how they feel about us. That's how they feel about like the real kind of right wing, like and like they label us as like far right. We believe the kinds of things that your average person did less than 100 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, tops, and maybe a little bit before that.
Well, everybody to the right of me is a Nazi. Everybody to the left is a communist. That's how it goes, isn't it?
I don't know if there's that many people right of us, but
there's a few, man. Twitter's got a pretty broad reach. But
let me finish this thought real quick. Basically, what I was trying to say about Elon is he did not buy X out of the goodness of his heart. It came out over Christmas, that whole H-1B controversy. Even if that didn't happen, I'd still be saying this, where Elon Musk did not buy it to be a free speech absolutist. Even if he lets everybody on, he bought it to have some say in the conversation, to have his hands on one level of the reins of power, which, even if you don't believe that, whatever, I think that's the case. I think Elon allowed this, whether he wanted to target USAid completely or for the sake of exposing Politico, that's just one competitor now that has had their credibility thrown in the mud. That's kind of what I'm thinking this was for.
Yeah, well, these guys understand, whether that's Bloomberg or the dog wants to go out, whether that's Bloomberg or whether that's Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post, they understand that there's power and influence. And if you can control the narrative, then
the big old
Stark,
dog.
you want to come say, hey, come here. Tell the people,
There's
hey,
a horse.
If you want to control the narrative, you have to have power and influence. Tell the camera, hey, say hey. Say hey. Say hey. You want to go outside? All right. Josh, we're
I
going to
can
keep talking.
opine.
We're going to talk about Bezos and influence on Washington Post.
Yeah, so basically, I think the kind of idea we're getting at is like you and I were saying, we're not free speech absolutist. We're, if I could have control of who gets to say what, I absolutely would exercise my power over that. What I want people to get, what I want conservatives to get is that like I feel like so many conservatives have this fixation on live and let live, let people do what they want to do. No one else has that belief. Everyone else wants to impose their will on other people. Why can't we do the same thing? Why don't we want to do the same thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the embodiment of libertarianism. I wouldn't say they're conservatives. The conservative label has been watered down pretty hard. But yeah, I mean, the communists want to regulate everything towards them. You can call them fascists, want to regulate everything towards them. I mean, that's just the nature of the thing. If you believe something to be good, therefore it's good for you, it should be good for everyone else. And so allowing other people to do whatever they wish is a detriment to society, and society is a collection of individuals. Therefore, the individuals should be able to assimilate into said society through that moral framework, which is what the West is. It's a standard given. And so when you have ideas like, I don't care what you do in your bedroom, turns into now we got pride parades and dudes with furry costumes on, naked, running down the middle of Main Street. Right? And so we got to follow these things to their logical conclusions. And so when you have influence like USAid funding Reddit, now Reddit's halfway shut down. I think 22% of Reddit is down. They have no moderators on some of the threads. It's like Reddit is this, or just in some of these sites in general, whether it's 4chan, Reddit, Twitter, whatever, Tumblr, they guide these people to an ideological oasis, you could say. And now that funding is gone, the ideology is going to slow down and just inherently out of being relevant. So if the funding is gone, the ideology goes away, and then we have a society that is able to sustain itself closer to a nuclear family worldview of the 1950s.
I think we're definitely headed in a good direction, but here's what concerns me, I guess, is I actually think that I think that moderate conservatism is almost just as bad as like the most hardcore deviant liberalism. You know, it's like, oh, a step in the right direction is a step in the right direction. Okay, but is it the right direction? There's more than like when it comes to the vastness of politics, you know, in the realm of God, there's good and there's evil, period. In the realm of politics, there's all sorts of different paths. And definitely there's like paths that point towards the good of God. But I think because it's so intentionally complex, it's easy for people to get caught up in the minutia. It's easy for you to trick the average person into arguing in favor of something that if they really thought about it, they wouldn't be in favor of. I mean, think about it. When I was a kid, like 20 years ago, like homosexuality, like even that wasn't a thing. Like it was, I mean, obviously it was around, but it was taboo. 20 years later, you got conservatives saying, well, I don't care if people are gay. You know, what you do in the privacy of your own home, man, that's up to you, dog.
Well, it's celebrated, especially some of these conferences where you have trannies running around.
Yeah, you think you'd have a tranny at CPAC 20 years ago?
Yeah.
They'd lose their freaking minds.
So that's what you're classifying as modern conservatism.
Yeah, it's gay.
I just don't like the label of conservatism or conservative. I feel like it's been watered down, and I think you're using it accurately among the modern ideal. But I'd like to go back to somewhere like Buchananism. Like you use it in the context of like a Barry Goldwater, where he was much more of a libertarian, but they called, he has Goldwater conservative label on him. That's what he is. In some ways, he was conservative, but those that are fiscally conservative aren't necessarily socially conservative, and that's what he was. He was not socially conservative in the same way. I mean, he was pro-porn. He was pro. Oh man, I'm blanking. He had some very odd views that led to what we see today. But he was small government, and he wanted less taxes. So everybody gung ho for Goldwater.
Yeah, man, it's frustrating because I feel like the people on our side, like the people that should be, as you would call them, like Buchananists, the people that should, like to me, to you and I, Christian nationalism, for example, it just makes sense. It's not that hard, but, and maybe it's because I work in conservative radio, so all I deal with is boomers. It's like, how can you not get it? It's not that hard. And they're like, well, like they're so fixated on the American system that like, it's almost like U.S. patriotism has got in the way of their rational thought process.
Well, this idea just popped in my head. I'm thinking, I'm trying to think back into like a nostalgic era of maybe I wasn't even there. Maybe it was like the early 90s when there wasn't much going on. I had a nostalgia for that place and time, at least in my lifetime. Do you think maybe there's a name for it, but they have a nostalgia that they're stuck in, that they're unable to update their worldview, but update even their memories to today's perspective, where they're still living in that nostalgia of 1970s, 80s America, which, I mean, you could call it a golden age, but it was a turn of radical individualism that led to what we see today. I mean, and obviously it takes time to get to where we are, and it's going to take time to get back. Maybe not as long as we think it is. But in the boomer's mindset, are they just stuck in a nostalgic place in their mind where they've just built a wall of comfort for themselves?
Yeah, this is, and I was just
thinking. That's a deep question.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just thinking about that, as you were telling it. It's basically like you and I would agree that the media or the establishment, whoever you want to call them, whoever they are, whatever, they have intent. You and I would agree. They have intentionally put up these roadblocks in people's faces to distract them. And I'll give you a perfect example. The boomers can't get past the capitalism versus communism debate. That's why, like today, they call them like leftist Marxists to this day. Someone like you and I, we're so far beyond that. But it's like you and I can get so lost trying to get a boomer out of the capitalist versus communists debate. And if you like red pilled them on that, if you got them past that, then you come to realize there's like 15 more of those walls in their way. That's why I like to think that on my show on radio, it's only boomers listening, but that it appeals more to a younger audience. I think the younger people are who need to be targeted. The boomers will be dead soon anyway. I mean, so that's what I say to Ken Art all the time is like, don't worry about getting young people to be capitalist. Like, worry about getting them to be like a true American, and which is not a capitalist. Those things are not synonymous with each other, but also like a true Christian.
Yeah, I think you touched on the argument between capitalism and communism. There's obviously a disconnect there. If somebody's going to be a communist, there's a predisposition there that they're going to be a communist. But I think there's a pipeline of being capitalist and then building into them social structure moving forward. I recall I did some interviews and talked with a couple of people running for Congress not too long ago, 2 elections ago, and one of them really harped on this idea of communism. Now, they came from Cuba, so that's a little bit of play. Obviously, you're going to take that lane if you have it, but boomer. But they couldn't get past this idea of communism. They could have done well in the election, but trying to drive home communism bad is not a platform anymore. Like, it doesn't exist. I mean, the Cold War isn't a Cold War anymore. It's still there, but it's not a communist versus capitalist Cold War. It's not a U.S. versus Russia Cold War. It's I don't know. It's just different now. You can't harp on communism and hope to essentially win elections.
Yeah. People don't care. I don't care. Like what's...
especially with the recent TikTok ban, and everybody went over to Red Note, and it's like all their eyes were open when they came across some Chinese grocery store where they've been lied to about the Chinese don't have stocked grocery stores, or they've been lied to about freedom in China or whatever. And they came across that Red Note has their own censorship. You know, you can't talk about Tiananmen Square. You can't talk about Winnie the Pooh. But they have their own censorship, as opposed to TikTok has its own censorship of you can't say X things about X things because, well, we can't say it on here either because YouTube has that same censorship. So there's a Western... So there's a Western censorship. It's not really Western. There's a censorship in Western countries and a censorship in Eastern countries that you could call communistic or you could call capitalistic that kind of mirror each other. I mean, some people want to float the horseshoe theory. I'm not one, but there is two sides of the same coin in this concept.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to something you said on the Pendulum podcast last week, which is like, of course, like if a boomer's listening to this, they're not going to take it well, but the boomers need to relinquish control. I don't know if you heard, but, oh crap. You know, I'm terrible with names. I should remember. And it's literally, who's the old guy that looks like a frog? Like MM is his initials. He's a Senate Majority Leader. No,
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, yeah, and Mitch McConnell.
Dude, Mitch McConnell fell yesterday.
That's what I was going to bring up.
He took a massive fall.
He's like in a wheelchair now.
Oh man,
he needs to go the frick home.
Go home, dude.
And that's the thing is, it's like,
and home is a coffin.
Okay, yeah, he need, the sun's up, dude. You need to get back inside.
Where's Bob at? He's back there chilling.
But yeah, that's exactly the point, though, is like the boomers will, like, it sounds terrible, but the boomers will not die. Not even in like a dead sense. They won't hand over the reins to the Gen Xers. And I kind of get why the Gen Xers and the millennials are homos. They're baby men, and they don't know what they're freaking doing. So I get why, but like you have seen this sort of resurgence in this sort of hard right, this far right mentality in the Gen Z, a little bit younger. And I think that's ultimately going to be for the better, especially once Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, so we did bring a guest on the podcast today. Everybody say hey to Mitch McConnell. We brought him on. Hey, Mitch, what you got to say?
Was I supposed to like?
Okay. I mean, it looks exactly like that press conference he gave a couple months ago where he just froze up. Like, you okay, Mitch? Okay. Anyway, yeah, these boomers, they won't hand over the reins. They won't hand over the keys. J.D. Vance is probably one of the first of his generation to even be involved in politics at that level. There's a generational skip. I mean, the entirety of millennials aren't in politics because it's all older boomers, and then you have a younger generation of AOCs, right? There's a generational skip because the boomers don't know how to hand over the keys. I don't know what that means going forward. because they can't last forever.
Well, okay. The good thing about it is they're going to die, and
The good thing is you're gonna die.
yeah. I mean, Mitch McConnell, he'll be dead soon, and I don't like. He's a human being. He's loved by God and all that good stuff, but he's not good for America. He and all these. What concerns me is who will replace him, and I think it's gotten to a point where they've acknowledged their own mortality. For decades, the boomers would not accept the fact that they're going to die, that they are not immortal. Now that their legs are falling off and they're halfway in the coffin already, now that they've experienced that, they are trying to hand the reins down to somebody. My concern with Vance, my concern with Vivek is that it's all like controlled. Like I don't believe that Vance came about organically. Yes.
I mean, I can agree with that, but has anybody
not
ever,
since
not in the last century?
Not since World War II, for sure.
Yeah, not in the last century.
Yeah.
So the best we can hope for is a system being gutted and accelerating this pace of handing over the reins to the point where it's not as solid footing as it would be.
I do think that Trump happened organically. There's some people that don't even believe that. I think Trump running for president was organic because the reactions at first were all they were all like, oh, oh, this is fun, until they realized he was serious. Then it all flipped. If it were controlled, I don't think the reactions would be the way they were. Like I've said before, what concerns me is, has he been co-opted? Has Trump hijacked the system, or has the system hijacked Trump?
You've mentioned some of the funding from Adelson's and some of the bigger donors that he specifically didn't take his first election. You are along the lines that he's bought more than not.
More than not. It's like there's shades of gray, and he's somewhere in there.
I mean, this recent showing with Netanyahu over in Israel kind of, I guess, maybe put a little bit of that into perspective for me. I mean, obviously we have to wait for it to pan out and see how that goes. But what would you say to him taking that money, understanding that he has access to that money without really anything to offer them of a significant value? I mean, he has it to offer to them of significant value on the back end, but kind of a little bit of reneging on that.
Like, is Trump going to renege on his
Gaza
thing? Oh,
in the same way that he would take an Adelson money and say, I can't do what I told you I could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, here's the thing about that. I do have that hope and that fantasy that like Trump would shill all, he would grift all he needs to get the money. And then, he's in for his last term of the presidency, and then he just does whatever he wants and be like, I gotcha. But do his actions show that? And like you actually brought this up yesterday, that you think that Donald Trump, his whole thing about like, we're going to, like the U.S. is going to take Gaza, and he, sorry, the dog distracted me. The U.S. is going to take control of Gaza. I don't actually believe that he's serious. And you said that yesterday. I don't like that was a negotiating tactic. I definitely think there was truth to that. I think that Trump did that to kind of shake up the stage a little bit. And you pointed out actually that you showed me a video of Benjamin Netanyahu's body language. And I'll admit, when you showed me that the other day, I was kind of like, you could read it both ways, but it's come out that apparently Donald Trump did not run that by him before saying it. I think he wanted to catch. I think you were right. I think he wanted to catch Benjamin Netanyahu off guard, and he did to shake things up, to shake up the negotiations.
Is it week 3? It's not. Well, week 3 would be Monday.
Yeah. We're at the tail end of week 2.
First 2 weeks of his presidency is just just do things. Just whatever it is, I'll just do it. Like, who's going to stop me? At least in the way of an executive order or in negotiation, we're just going to do things and worry about legislation on the back end. Mm-hmm. And I think Gaza is one of them.
All right. Come on.
Start, leave him alone.
Come on, buddy.
Go lay down on your little dog bed. You got something to say here?
He needs a carrot or something. What do horses eat? Hay. Go get some hay. Yeah, I definitely think we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, let's be honest, Israel's going to get whatever they want. I don't think. Okay,
whatever
let's hold on.
I guess whatever they want is kind of, I guess, questionable. I mean, they want ethnic cleansing of whatever land that they want to take over, and I don't know. Will they get that? Maybe.
What does ethnic cleansing mean, though? Does that mean, does Benjamin Netanyahu, if he could do whatever he wanted, he'd probably have Israel be the only country on the planet, or like enslave the Goyim? Who knows? But I think he would be okay with getting rid of all the Palestinians, and he doesn't give a crap where they go. They go. I mean, Russia, America.
Let's look at it this way. If you perceived your land rights to be within said boundary, would you not want those that you didn't perceive to be a part of your country or nation within those boundaries?
Yeah.
I think that's what, I mean, they think that that's theirs.
Yeah. They believe they're entitled to it.
And so therefore what they're doing is justified under their thought process.
Yeah.
But we don't. I mean, it's the same concept of us deporting people.
Yeah. They believe it's their sovereign land. And you know what? Like, I'm a Christian. I believe that God did give the Jews that land. The Hebrews that, yeah.
Let's get technical here.
The Hebrews that land, but I don't know if they've heard. There's been a couple updates since then.
Yeah.
Also, you can't discount the fact, okay, the Palestinians, whether it's your land from 6,000 years ago or not, they're there now. And they, like they were settled there. Y'all kind of came in later under the presumption that it's your modern land. Also, I would argue that the blessings, you hear this from your boomers all the time. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. I believe that's true. But
we
Israel,
we just disagree on what Israel is.
Israel is you.
Yeah,
Israel is me.
Israel is the church.
It is the Christians.
This should be a fundamental understanding but it's been usurped through dispensationalism, and the boomers are the ones that bought into it.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Post World War II Jewish hypnotism.
Oh boy, that's a road. We can go all the way back to 1907 on that one. But yeah, I mean, maybe to bring this thing full circle, once DOGE finds the actual funding for Israel, and we kind of cut that down a little bit,
you think he's going to do that? Be real.
I don't know, man. If we're just cutting everything, why not, dude?
But they're not going to cut everything. Trump proposed cutting foreign aid to everyone except Israel and Egypt.
Yeah,
the other week.
Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. Anyway,
was it Jordan too?
Yeah. Well, it was some combination of that. But
one of Israel's neighbors.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to see. There's always a little catch when it comes to Israel. I guess the question is, if they do find it and we pull funding, can Israel sustain itself without U.S. funding? Or would they need, some Rothschilds to step in and maybe find funding somewhere else?
I don't want to get... but basically, I almost think that at this point in time, it's almost impossible not to have that, for the U.S. not to fund Israel. The only person I think genuinely who could have done that was Donald Trump. But I don't think he's going to do that now. And think about it. Like, you and I know this. The system, and I don't just mean like this ambiguous system. The reins of power, the media, finance, almost all forms of industry are controlled by billionaires who happen to be Stein, Gold, Green, whatever.
Well, if not that, then it's BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yes, and
State Street
they
and-
won't allow that to happen. They'll lash out with their money and whatnot. Now, here's the nice thing: is assets can be seized by the government, but is anyone going to do that? I don't think so. I think this is like I've talked about this before. We need to be thinking 100 years out, not like let's win the next election, guys. Yahoo! We need to be thinking like, how can we get our hands on the reins of power 100 years from now? Because that's what they did. That's what the enemy did. They thought. I mean, they kind of had to because they were so small in power. They manipulated politics. Now, granted, I don't think we should kill people, but like the people's hearts. The word of the law of God is written on the hearts of all man, and you can bring people around to our side, depending on who they are and depending on what topic it is.
Yeah, there's definitely a long game that needs to be played, and this is my opposition to something like term limits. I know a lot of people like to raise the idea that we should impose term limits on Congress, but I'm not convinced, man, because I think about things like the Supreme Court that doesn't have term limits. I mean, they serve for life, and there's a stability there that is able to maintain at least a little bit of order for the country moving forward. And you talk about a long-term plan. I think for us to have long-term plans, we need to have less of a turnover. And so when it comes to things like term limits, maybe we should not focus on term limits so much as we should focus on lobbying and then getting elected officials in there that are actually willing to move the ball forward and play within the narrow confines of what is actually good for Americans.
What I think the best option is because even, with it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but even what I just mentioned about the 100-year plan, I think something you brought up in past shows is you need drastic change, and that's either going to happen really quickly or over a very long period of time. And if we want to play it quickly, we've got to be decisive. We can't be wishy-washy. Trump is wishy-washy. Trump backtracks. Trump, like, he seems like a hardliner, but he's actually not on certain issues. Even simple issues like the wall. He's not. He cares more about his perception and legacy than he does about the actual results. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't believe we should do anything like, stage terror, but like, if, take advantage of the situation. I think the quickest and best way to do this is by not voting, is by creating. If you create a power vacuum, it necessarily will be filled. If you get enough people to come around to our way of thinking and say, here's what we want, and they are not going to give it to you, do not vote. The left seems bad, but they're nowhere near as bad as us not winning at all. Don't vote. That will eventually.
Now,
you get enough people to do that, it'll create a vacuum, and someone will fill it. And it might be a small vacuum, and then whoever fills that vacuum, they might be mistreated. They might be, cast aside or whatever. But then more people will see that, and then eventually more people will come around. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think there's a place for that, but I don't think last election was it, and I know you advocated for that. Again, we talked about a split happening, a possibility in the future of the Republican Party, and I think it is inevitable. Once that split happens, I think advocating for leveraging votes in that way is much more of a viability to get things done than it was this last election. But there was too much on the table, I would argue, to essentially leave that to chance. Now, that's disregarding the idea of stealing elections through voter fraud. So that's another issue that is going to have to be handled before we even start trying to leverage votes itself.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like I think they stole the election in 2020. I mean, I don't think they did. And why didn't they do that this time?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, you could argue that they tried.
I'm not saying that you get some middle management
at
black
least it
DMV
looks,
worker in Georgia to in Fulton County to do the same thing they did 4 years ago, but it wasn't at like an institutional level. I think what happened in 2020 was orders came down from on high, and they said,
you
"Do this.
You don't
we're
think
going
it
to
was
take care of you."
suppressed simply because there were actually eyeballs looking for it this time, and so it couldn't have been as obvious because it was so obvious in 20. It was so obvious that they simply couldn't do it again at the level that they did it.
Well, I mean, on Wake Up Carolina, we basically uncovered evidence of them doing this in Dillon County, South Carolina, at like a time, like I don't remember who was running for what, but like a mayoral candidate race.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to do that for the presidency.
Well, I'm from Dillon County, South Carolina, and it is bad. And this is what I try to explain to people almost immediately after the 20 election, or even the 16. I try to explain that it doesn't have to be institutional. It doesn't have to be widespread in a conspiracy type way. It doesn't have to be widespread in a network type way. What it can be, though, is you have 10,000 Dillon counties where you have an injected amount of votes proportional to the population of said counties. Dillon County is anywhere from 600 to 1,000 votes. If you copy and paste that X amount of times across all of the corrupt counties in the nation, I mean, that adds up pretty quick. And so you don't need widespread, quote unquote. You don't need a conspiracy for an election at a national level to be stolen. I do still believe it is. And so that just compounds the issue.
So what I would say is, like, I agree with the sentiment where I don't think there's conspiracy and collusion at the very top of the pyramid where the elites are conspiring together, but there doesn't need to be a formal conspiracy when they all go to the same schools, and they basically all think the same way. You could have like an entire religion conspiring to do things without communicating with each other because they are spiritually all in the same place. Now, that's a theory. But let's look at what happened. This happened in 20. It didn't happen in 16. You can explain it by saying, well, there were more eyes on them this time, but were there eyes on like all the same places? I think, to me, the simplest explanation is that orders came down. We see this all the time. Like the whole topic of, like, one of the big things about USAid is they are funding. It's not like they're funding, all the money's going to individual billionaires. They're funding like influencers. They're paying like thousands of people $100 to just post the same thing over and over and flood it with what they want people to see. I think that's what happened in 20. They went to the right people en masse and said, here's what we're going to do. And we're going to take care of you. You don't need to worry about it. Here's how it's going to work. They were not organizing it this time. That's what I think.
Well, let me say this. It pops into my head. I think about Operation Mockingbird, where the news stations essentially put out copy and paste content across the board. It's not relegated to a singular organization. I mean, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, they all cover virtually the exact same thing. Mark Dice talks about this a lot. If Operation Mockingbird can work, why can't something else with the funding of USAid?
Oh, it could.
And it does. I would say it does. I mean, if they're pushing streamers out there like Vause, now he hasn't come out and said he's being funded by USAID, and We haven't found
Do
it.
you think he is? I don't keep
Absolutely,
up with him.
I think he is. No, he came out 2 days ago or yesterday talking about kind of panhandling himself to his followers, saying it's going to start getting tight for us streamers over here. I don't know why that would be. It's kind of an odd timing on that one. So let's just assume.
Do you think Destiny's funded?
Correctly. Destiny is definitely funded through USAID. I don't know, but he's definitely funded through some other networks. I would I don't know, somewhere. Dude. There's no way these streamers aren't funded. Like Hassan, he's funded. Whether that's from his uncle or somebody else, I don't know. But I mean, the Young Turks himself are funded. So it's all one big web of money being circulated through the same people or to the same people for what? For ideas being pushed on a younger audience.
Yeah, they're trying to like own the narration. And that's like getting back to kind of the original thing we were talking about. That's what Elon wants to do too.
What was the massive thing that they thought won Trump the presidency? I guess there was a lot of them. There's so much happened between, trying to be assassinated. But I guess in particular, I'm thinking about the Joe Rogan interview. Joe was a lefty up until the Trump presidency, but
I remember you and I had this conversation before.
Have we?
Yeah.
But anyway, they
not
were
on
pushing,
the show. Not
they
on
were
the show.
pushing for this idea of, we need a Joe Rogan on the left. It's like you had a Joe Rogan. And so if they're arguing for we need a Joe Rogan on the left, they know that they need that. And so why are they not funding to create one? But I would say they are. It's just like they were funneling money from the Kamala Harris campaign to call her daddy. Like, we know that happened. So they're funding all of these influencers. Where's my money? I mean, I'll say a thing as long as I agree with it.
With 3 viewers, I don't think we're on the top of their
list.
We're
getting there, man. We're getting there.
Yet.
We just started. We're 2 weeks in.
Yeah, but I think, excuse me.
Hey, I mean, they're probably botting too. Why would they not be botting?
Oh, they are botting. They are. I mean, like,
I wouldn't be surprised if you see the views crash on some of these streams and some of these videos coming pretty soon. Why would USA not be funding bot farms to increase the number of viewers to the streamers that they're funding? I mean, if this is just one big money pile, which it seems like it is, and they want to push ideas out there, you're going to have to fund a bot farm at least to fast track these ideas into the mainstream.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is not speculation. They're doing it, but now it's been confirmed. And if anything, I think I don't mean to be the doom and gloom guy. I don't mean to be the a win isn't a win guy. But I think throwing Politico under the bus is inconsequential. I still believe we're at a state in the establishment, in the swamp, to where what is happening right now is allowed. It's not actually a subversion. I think it's a what do you call it? Like a concession.
I don't know, man. Maybe it is a concession, but I feel like they're losing a lot on this concession. I mean, like you said, I don't think Politico is inconsequential, but it's like the meme of the guy that's knocking over the little tiny domino, and then there's a little bit bigger domino and a little bit bigger domino until it's like massive.
Yeah,
I think this USA is a little tiny domino that's gonna fall and keep falling and keep falling until we get to, I don't know, maybe the DOD funding.
All right. I mean, we've been going a little while, but I want to ask you a hypothetical. And
I don't like hypotheticals. I don't engage with hypotheticals. Mitch, do you engage in hypotheticals? Anyway, go ahead.
So my question is, where you think that Elon is a tool right now that is being used for our political gain? He's got his own means, and right now we're aligned. Is that a fair assessment of what you believe about him?
I mean, there's a lot of nuance there, but
Sure.
We'll go.
Okay. So my question is, do you think or it's a two-part, do you think at some point there will have to be a split between us and Elon, and what do you think that would be? What would that look like?
I think there already is a split. I think that split already exists, but we have a common enemy in everyone left of center, that we're okay with allying with someone like Elon, or even Vivek to an extent, to get to the point where we have a split.
Let me stop you right there. I was just reminded of something that when I first got the job with Kennard 2 years ago, and he first brought up Elon, me and him had this same conversation back then, where I was skeptical of Elon back then, like right after he had bought Twitter. And here's why. I brought this up with you and Rodney on the Pendulum podcast. Someone like Bill Maher has been almost accepted by the right today because he is good by comparison to the far, far left.
He has recognized a space in reality where he can exist and say bad thing is bad. And Elon has done the same thing.
Exactly. Elon, I remember it was years ago now, but like 2019 or something. Elon posted a meme.
No, I don't trust Elon if that's what you're asking.
No. That's not. I'm trying to make the point where Elon, he posted a meme where it showed a political chart, and there was like a little guy on the left, a little guy on the right, and a guy in the middle. The left wing guy in the next like comic strip had moved so far to the left that the middle was also moved, making the guy who was in the middle appear right. That's what Elon is. Elon is actually a left-wing guy, is actually part of the problem.
Well,
he's not socially conservative.
I would say Elon is, I mean, I guess you could throw some people in this camp with Elon is like a Peter Thiel, obviously, a Ben Shapiro, Vivek you could throw in there. It's this at this core is the separation of capitalism as in its purest form, or we could call it classical liberalism, which is a leftist idea, or conservatism, where I don't really know where Trump would specifically fall in this, but it would be more of a nationalistic aspect, and that's going to be the split. I mean, who do you know that is fiscally left? Like nobody is fiscally liberal, not really.
Yeah.
And so what that leaves is a social aspect. And that's where these classical liberal ideas of do as you want to do, this libertarian idea of as long as you don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. What's the non-aggression principle? As long as those ideas remain, I mean, they're essentially left of center. And yes, I think Elon is, I would say he's probably more center than you would, but the point still remains is once this left that has quote unquote left the Democrat Party, or the Democrat, how they say the Democrat Party left me, once they're gone, there's a void that's going to have to be filled of opposition. And it's going to be created just like they needed a Donald Trump figure for the 4 years that he wasn't there. So they created, white people bad, essentially. Now, moving forward, that split's going to happen again. It's just going to continue to happen where the left is filed off and it takes a lot of the Overton window with it until the point where it essentially slingshots back to where now you have two rights, and it's going to keep drifting until one's center, and then it's going to keep drifting until that one's left again, and it's going to slingshot back. And each time it's just the same thing. It's just the right always wins those rebellion. Maybe not always. I think about the Red Revolution. The right typically wins those revolutions or revivals to bring society back into a coherent position. And that, again, that split is going to happen more sooner than later. Maybe that probably doesn't answer your question. I don't know. I guess what specifically are you asking about Elon? I mean, is he on our team at this point? Because I mean, the system has to fall in the idea that a void must be created for a split to occur.
I don't think, like, because what we were hoping for with Trump 8 years ago was a hack and slash reformation, and we didn't get it. And I don't think we're getting it now, and I don't think that's what Elon wants. I think what Elon is trying to get is he's trying to get the regulators to get off his ass so he can get more rockets out there. I'm not convinced that Elon has a social agenda beyond non-tranny. And maybe not even that. You know, you look at Peter Thiel, who's a flaming homo. I mean, I don't know how on our side Elon is. And like I said, I think that him exposing the amount of fraud going on within our government is good, but long term, let's say he keeps exposing the fraud within our government completely. And we get, at the end of the day, that's a fiscal win. That's an economic win, less than a social win.
But it will have this social win.
It will have a trickle-down effect.
I guess it depends on how much fraud there is. If Elon's goal is to get rid of fraud, the amount of fraud in the U.S. government is going to be a gutting of the system entirely. The whole thing is fraud. The whole system is a fraud and has been for at least the last 20 years, 25 years, maybe longer.
Yeah. I mean,
it's a social win if all the fraud is done.
You're seeing the pun intended pendulum swing away from the left towards the right, but I think we got to stop thinking about us versus the left. I think the centrists, Ken Arndt says this, the centrists are almost worse, and I think that's where they want it. I think that's where Elon wants it. Elon's not a Christian. Elon believes. The most he believes about Christianity is what Jordan Peterson says, which is basically, oh, Jesus is this, he's like Pinocchio. He's like this really good fictional character that's inspiring to people. And we should strive to be more like the idea of Jesus.
I do think Jordan Peterson came out the other day and said that he believes that Jesus really rose from the dead.
Did he?
Yeah. I think he said on Alex O'Connor's podcast.
I need to see that because I feel like if he actually did, why did he avoid saying it for so long?
Because he knows that the backlash that Christians get, he didn't want to take, especially in the Jewish media. Yeah. But
Jews don't run the media, Zeb. That's a racist, anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
What Theo Vaughn say? Tell my Jewish friends that. That's not what my Jewish friends say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, moving forward, man, we'll have to see what happens. He's on our team for now. I'll take the centrist over the leftist. I'm not an accelerationist right now.
Okay.
Though if it happened, I wouldn't complain. But I guess in the way of Ken Arndt calling, saying that centrists are worse, I would consider him more of a centrist. So I guess it depends on definitions. So
yeah. I mean,
like classical liberals are centrist to me.
Yeah, they are.
Which inevitably leads to progressivism.
Of course.
And so here we are. So we need to fix it at the root where the logic leads to Christ and not transgenderism and transhumanism.
I agree. Although, I'm sure we got to wrap up here, but Elon is a transhumanist. He's building Neuralink, or at least trying to.
Stu texted me.
He wants to live forever.
He was going to watch live. Yeah, he wants to live forever with his Neuralink. I don't know, man.
He wants to be like the 3-body problem. He wants to upload his brain into a satellite and control the world for
You think it'll ever
eternity.
happen?
No.
You don't think it'll ever happen?
I don't
think it can either.
This could be a show for another day, but I don't believe Neuralink is possible. Like what he thinks is going to happen. Like, did you watch the Joe Rogan podcast where he talked about that?
No, I watched a couple of clips. Probably not what you're.
He thinks that like you'll be able to like download consciousness to a computer. Essentially, I don't think that's possible. I don't think AI will ever be conscious in the way that we are. I don't think that's possible.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's possible either. I mean, I see the body as a conduit for the soul and spirit.
Yeah, like basically,
So, I mean, you can't create another soul and spirit to inhabit it.
you can have a
body
computer
of consciousness.
process like data from a camera in the same way that our brain processes data from our eyes, but the experience of it, that's not something that can be programmed.
Yeah, really, all that depends on your worldview and how you perceive
Right.
the structure of reality, I guess. I mean, if you see it as a simulation,
I mean, but even
why
in
wouldn't
the
you
this is kind of like my where I love to get into, which is why I want to say we've been going a long time.
we can save it for another. We can save it for
but
another
like
day.
philosophy of mind, they call it the hard problem of consciousness, which I'm sure
Yes.
you've heard of that before. Where basically neuroscientists, they can't get over like where does experience come from. You can like when you chalk down pain, for example, that is object A interacting with a sensor and giving a like this is bad type response to the brain, but we experience it as pain. That's not what computers are like. Anyway, we're kind of getting off, but this has been. We wrapping up here? We wrapping up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up if you want to go ahead and take it.
This has been Outside the Overton with Josh Vandernoord and Zeb Boykin. We thank you for watching. I saw, we got a live stream here. We saw during the show there was a couple people watching on and on. We appreciate it. If you enjoy it, please like, share. I know we're still getting a lot of the minutia kind of worked up right now, but we're going places. So stick around so you can say you were there at the beginning.